Well. Here we are again. Games Workshop strikes back. Is it just another overreaction from the fanbase, or yet another step along the road to IP self-destruction? I've already made several videos conveying my thoughts on Games Workshop's previous lore retcon, specifically their decision to retroactively claim that there had always been female custodians, a move that debunked 30 years of established lore, followed by what many fans quite reasonably felt was gaslighting when objections were raised. I thought it was a bad move then, and I think it's a bad move now. That said, after Space Marine 2, the Secret Level show, and a run of generally solid releases, the backlash seemed to die down. Fans shrugged, went back to the hobby, and GW largely got away with it. That is until this year's New Year preview. Games Workshop has now officially introduced female head options in the Horus Heresy Custodes release. While controversial, this wasn't exactly a shock. It had already been circulated as a rumour back during the original Custodes Contention. To be honest, I think most unhelmeted Space Marine heads look pretty bad in my opinion, so these are no exception, though some of these new heads are genuinely ugly. One of them looks less like a super engineered demigod and more like my Asian Nana. Which is a shame, because the armour itself actually looks great. But the real issue, and one that GW has managed to slip under the radar in my opinion, is the inclusion of clearly female heads in the newly announced Space Marine Heads upgrade pack, now available for pre-order. I can hear the responses already. They aren't female. Even if they are, it's not canon. They're just optional modelling choices, man. To that I say, they clearly are female, and if you're pretending otherwise, you're lying to yourself. In a sensible world, this wouldn't even be an issue if GW were upfront and honest. But they never are. We've heard the line before, "We're not going to make female Space Marines canon," and yet every time the company edges a little bit closer. No actual hobbyists were asking for female Space Marine heads either, mainly because there's never been a need. If you want female heads, you can kit bash from the Sisters of Battle, buy third-party bits, or 3D print your own, or kit bash from any other female army in the universe, or an Age of Sigmar. This isn't about options. This is about testing the waters. Someone inside GW is seeing how far they can push before coming back later and saying, well, female heads have always existed, so why not make it canon? And honestly, I kind of dare them to do it. Because while I don't want the hobby destroyed, the only leverage we have as customers and creators is our wallets. If GW thinks the backlash against Star Wars, Star Trek, or Bud Light was bad, I think female Space Marines in 40k would cause brand damage on an entirely different scale. And maybe if they finally do it and feel the burn, they will learn their lesson. Not that any of these other brands seem to have. Anyway, as expected, the reaction was mixed. Mainstream gaming and pop culture outlets rushed out glowing puff pieces celebrating this as a win. Meanwhile, the YouTube launch trailer got absolutely ratioed, and GW's stock dropped around 6%. Divisive, therefore, is probably the most accurate word. So the real questions are, why is this happening, and why would a company deliberately pursue divisive actions? Has Games Workshop gone woke? Well, there are clearly ideological elements within the company at this point. Certain writers, certain incidents have made this undeniable. But I don't think that's the primary driver. I think this is about the Amazon live-action series with Henry Cavill attached as a producer. I believe these changes were forced through to appease Amazon. And if so, they may have doomed the show before it even begins. Just like Black Snape in Warner Bros.' new Harry Potter series. Amazon's IP fails are well documented and numerous. Rings of Power, Wheel of Time. Over $1 billion spent, and both were absolute disasters, and there are plenty more that you could name. And before anyone says it, no, Fallout wasn't good. It looked fine, sure, but the story was incoherent and nonsensical. And not in a charming way, in a, this was written by idiots who don't understand the material way. Anyway, before this turns into a full-blown rant, let's wrap it up. Nothing has really changed at Games Workshop. There are still factions within the company that are clearly determined to feminize the brand. And if they succeed, the outcome will be the same as every other traditionally masculine franchise that's gone down this path. Loss of customers, brand damage, and ultimately, lost revenue. There are already plenty of good female characters in 40k. There are plenty of women in the hobby who like it exactly as it is. Trying to capture a large new female audience by fundamentally altering the setting is simply not realistic, and GW will find that out the hard way if they continue. If everything's really fine, then here's a simple request. Publish the sale numbers for Valerian and Aliyah, compared to someone like Titus, or even a mid-tier character like Belisarius Cawl. They won't, and we all know why. It's the same reason GW didn't release a standalone female Space Marine head pack. Nobody would buy it. I remain convinced that the entire Custodes contention stems directly from the Amazon deal and the same corporate practices that have already hollowed out so many once great IPs. I look forward to what Amazon are going to do to Bond, by the way. Anyway, I want the 40k live action series to be great. I really do. And while I'd love to believe Henry Cavill will be the difference, his recent career has been one long series of bait and switch disappointments. And after a decade of awful sci-fi and fantasy adaptations, I'll believe it when I see it. What do you make of the Custodes contention? And do you think Amazon's 40k series with Henry Cavill will actually be good? Let me know in the comments. And as always, f*** Erebus.